see you, but I see the slide.
That's
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
You can see the slide. I don't mind if you see me or don't see me, but I want you to see the slide.
Okay, Maharaj.
All right.
Sounds good.
And I think our technology team is working on getting the camera so you could see both.
Okay.
But
Wonderful.
shall we begin?
Yes, Maharaj. If you allow, I can say a few words before we begin.
Please keep it short, please.
Sure, Maharaj. Thank you. Uh, welcome everyone to the UMD BYC's Tuesday evening Zoom program. I'm Karuna, and along with my wife Kishori Radha, who's also here, we try to facilitate these meetings with the help of many UMD students and alumni who are also here. This club has been existing for the last 36 years, and for the last decade, it's been going on under the supervision of Padma Malini Devi and Devaprastha Prabhus, who are also here. So today we are very fortunate to have again with us His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj, and he will be speaking to us about dealing with fear. Uh, Before I briefly introduce Maharaj, a couple of housekeeping things. If you all are able to turn on your videos, that would be very nice. We haven't experienced any bandwidth issues. And after the talk, when we get to questions, it would also be nice if the participants can turn on their videos so that Maharaj knows who's asking the question and ask in person. If you're not able to do that, then you can type the question in Zoom and I'll try to read it out to Maharaj. And yes, so briefly, His Holiness Romapad Swami is a celibate monk in the Bhakti Yoga tradition. He's been practicing for almost 50 years. He's an initiated disciple of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. He is in the renounced order since 1983 and has been traveling all over the world, sharing the philosophy of the Bhagavad-Gita as it is with people everywhere, particularly with college students. So again, we're very fortunate to have him speak to us today about dealing with fear. Thank you, Maharaj. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. At some point in time, hopefully, the Zoom camera is going to be able to, you can see me. But until then, if you, at least on my screen, it's on the upper left. Can you make it full screen? Is there some way to make the PowerPoint image large?
I see it full screen, Maharaj.
You see it full screen. Fantastic. There.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'm happy. I'm happy. On a theme not so dissimilar from last week, there's a lot of uncertainty in the times in which we're living presently. And I don't know about you, but it's not so easy to make even short-term plans, what to speak of medium or long-term plans. There's some idea of a direction that we would like to move in, I would like to move in, or you all would like to move in, and it doesn't always work out. This term reversals, resilience in the face of reversals, this is a term that's not so common in our English language, but our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada used it a lot. You're walking along the path of life and you're heading from point A to point B, and next thing you know, you're not heading from point A to point B, but you're going back to point A, or you're going in some other direction altogether. Surprisingly, there are circumstances that are unexpected that arise in life. And when those unexpected circumstances arrive, what do you do? In practical terms. So there's this nice word, resilience. In the face of those situations, let's spend some time taking a look at the meaning of this word resilience. A simple dictionary definition is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, or toughness, resilience. Sometimes, like this image shows on the screen, there's a really strong wind. And is the tree going to bend or break? So just like the tree meeting some strong force of wind, our lives also encounter situations that are sometimes pretty extreme, at least unexpected. So this resiliency is sometimes, one way to look at it is liken it to a rubber band. It's a rubber band is another term for it is elastic band. It's elastic. It has its particular shape when it's not being stretched, but when needed, the rubber band can stretch and be quite flexible according to the circumstance and the need. And as soon as the circumstance and need is completed, you release the rubber band and it goes back to its normal place. So this is one way of describing what resiliency is. It's a state of mind or capacity of the mind to be flexible, to adjust quickly to something that's unexpected. It's some persons have more flexibility than others, resiliency than others, but the time calls for us to have that. A rubber band serves to bind things together. There's this thing, that thing, and maybe a few things, and the rubber band binds it together. It helps. So a resilient mind dealing with something that's unexpected and maybe even quite strong or maybe even severe, it tests the capacity of the mind to be resilient, to stay on course, or to adjust course according to the circumstance, and work your way through with this word resiliency in mind. It's a mental function, it's capacity, a strength, an inner strength, and all the while looking to continue heading towards a purpose or a goal that you wish to move in, and you adjust, but you continue on course, or you realign and readjust the course. So that's an idea of resiliency in the face of reversals, just framing the topic a little bit. So how do you get resiliency? Supposing you want to become better at responding in a flexible yet true to the course of your life's purpose way, how do you get that resiliency? Well, there's a few things, largely rooted in Bhagavad-Gita. We find that a life of simplicity can mean different things. You don't keep unnecessary clutter. You keep your life clean and simple. Things that are necessary, they're necessary. You keep in contact with those things that are necessary. But things that are superfluous, you continue to keep things simple. There's a very nice teaching I like that comes from Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, who uses this word simplicity. The Sanskrit word is saralata. Saralata. It has to do with truthfulness. You abide by that which is true, and it's a primary quality of those who live their life by the quality of goodness. The quality of goodness, contrasting with passion and ignorance, keeps you on course. It's the mode of maintenance and purity and simplicity. So there are ways you can read from Bhagavad-Gita, ways to enhance the quality of goodness in your life. And simplicity is one of them. Keep things simple, streamlined, uncluttered, uncumbersome. As you need things, you accept them and you maintain them nicely. And so a lifestyle of simplicity. Even the world around us and things that are called upon us to do may be diverse and even complex, but it's an inner quality, simplicity, an inner quality. And accepting austerity. This is, austerity may sound like it hurts, but austerity just means control of the mind and senses, the whole of the yoga process, and for that matter, those of you who are students, you live a life of austerity. You can't be all over the place and be effective in your academic work. You have to be focused. You have a purpose. You're foregoing other things to fulfill that purpose that's important to you. And student life has its set of austerities. So in life, beyond student life, there are recommended yogic related or mode of goodness related austerities, such as rising early, staying very clean, being very truthful, acting with compassion for others, and so forth. These are, for the person in the mode of goodness, they're not difficult. It's not painful, or let's say cleanliness. If your nature is a mode of goodness person, you don't feel good being in a place that's not clean, so immediately you're busy yourself making a place clean, because for some people, cleanliness, the time it takes to be clean is austere, and for a person who is austere, living in a place that's cluttered and unclean, that's not favorable. So these are two principles, simplicity and austerity, that help strengthen resiliency. Here's another, I hope you don't mind Sanskrit words, Srishti and Drishti. They even sound alike. Srishti it's related to creation or the circumstances around you. And Drishti is your perception of the circumstances around you. The idea is there isn't much you can do about the circumstances around you in some cases, but there is something you can do about how you perceive the circumstances around you. I'm going to share a little story called the Chinese farmer story. It's a nice story. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer. And he had a horse. And the people in the village came to the Chinese farmer and said, "Oh, what good fortune you have a horse. Because you have a horse, you can plow your fields much more easily than those of us that don't have a horse." And the farmer replied to his friend, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" That's the drishti. After some time passed, the horse ran away. That's the srishti of the circumstance. And then the villagers came to the farmer and said, "Oh, what misfortune, your horse ran away. Now you have to plow your fields like the rest of us." And it turns out the Chinese farmer, he was a Taoist. So he had the same answer every time. He said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" And after some time, the horse came back. And not only the horse came back, but many other wild horses came back with that horse. And the villagers came to the farmer and said, "Oh, what good fortune. Now you not only have one horse, but you have many horses, and you can plow your field so much more easily." And the Chinese farmers said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" After some time, the son of the farmer was trying to train the wild horses how to plow the field, and he fell off the horse and broke his leg. So the villagers came to the Chinese farmer and said, "Oh, what misfortune. Your son broke his leg." And the Chinese farmer said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" The story's almost over. Then after some time, the Chinese government declared war. And they had a law that said all able-bodied men over a certain age had to join the army. And when the army came, they didn't take away his son because he had a broken leg. And the villagers came to the farmer and said, "Oh, what good fortune. Your son didn't have to go to war because he had a broken leg." And the farmer said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" We don't know what happened after that because the story ends. But the message here is how you perceive circumstances that life sends your way is something that you have control over. You can make free will choices. You can have an attitude. This resiliency of the mind is responding quickly and maintaining a steady balance, even in the face of quite contrasting and difficult and stressful sometimes circumstances of life. That's a perception of the reality around you. There's a very nice phrase that Srila Prabhupada uses in the very beginning verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Some of you are familiar with that writing, Srimad Bhagavatam. He speaks of reality distinguished from illusion. The whole of the Vedic wisdom is teaching us how to perceive reality distinguished from illusion. Now, for the most part, those that are immersed in illusion accept illusion to be reality. And without descending transcendental wisdom, we're likely to just to continue accepting illusion to be reality. But the yogic process or the Vedic process provides us an opportunity to perceive behind the appearance of things the deeper reality of things. And here's a couple of practical examples. This is now looking towards stressful situations and allowing that we have a perception option available to us. Some of you in this audience, you may know Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book in 1946, some time ago, called Man's Search for Meaning. And it's a very popular book. It's been reprinted something like 19 times and sells out each time. And the reason it sells out, it's really good. It's also really short. And it's full of meaning. So that the circumstance of Viktor Frankl's life was he was a practicing psychiatrist, but during World War II, he was in a Nazi concentration camp. Actually, there were two different ones. He shifted from one to the other. and he survived. And after he escaped, or after the war was over and was no longer in a concentration camp, that's when he wrote this book. And here's a couple excerpts from the book that you may wish to go search online or even read the book, or if you know somebody that's really in difficulty, stressed by their life circumstances, this is a very helpful book for such a person, or for you to advise somebody that's in that situation. Here's one of the sayings: everything can be taken from a man, but one thing. The last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Now, his circumstances were very severe, probably beyond the severity of anything that we will experience in our lifetime as a challenging, difficult circumstance. And yet, what he was doing when he describes in the book, what allowed him to survive was he had a purpose. And his purpose was, on the other side of the war, he wanted to help people who were dealing with stressful circumstances that were outside of their control, and there was nothing they could do about it. That's the Srishti, the circumstance. So his circumstance, there was nothing he could do. But he had a choice, a freedom to choose how he was going to respond, or the attitude in any given set of circumstance. So his attitude was, I want to help people. I want to be in service to others who have they face difficulties and they're not sure how they're going to handle those difficulties. I want to be of service to those people. That sustained his life. That was his attitude in the given set of circumstances, that he had nothing he could do about it. Here's another nice saying from that same book. There is also purpose in life, which is almost barren of both creation and enjoyment, and which admits of but one possibility of high moral behavior, namely, man's attitude to his existence, an existence restricted by external forces. I hope you get the picture. This is just expanding on this Srishti and Drishti idea. There are circumstances of life. You're walking along the path of your life one day, and here comes an unexpected set of circumstances. It happens. And it can be very challenging. And it can be something that doesn't just last for a downpour of rain or hurricane. It can last for a long period of time, long stretches of time, circumstances you really can't do anything about. There's a freedom that can't be taken from you, a purpose that you have, that's yours, and that's how you respond. As he writes, man's attitude to his existence. It's a very powerful tool, or a medium for resiliency. It really helps to have a goal. I mean, just your students. So you have a goal. You're in school because, and you fill in the blank. That's why you're doing what you're doing and making sacrifices and undergoing austerities, because there's a goal. So what happens, as researchers describe, when the expectations on the other end of your education don't work out the way that you thought they would, without going into the so many things that may not work out the way that you're expecting they'll work out, and how you're going to respond to those circumstances. They may be favorable, they may be unfavorable. They may appear to be either way. How are you going to keep this resiliency of mind focused? It's very important to have long-term goal or a mission in life. That's one of resiliency features. When the rubber band stops stretching and it's back to normal, what does it look like? And even when it's stretched, what does it look like? What's that higher purpose of your life, whatever, regardless of the circumstances? To achieve that requires an inner strength to stay on course. Here's a nice little saying straight from the internet. Physical strength is measured by what we can carry. Inner strength is measured by what we can bear. Resiliency requires inner strength, and it may require inner strength for a sustained period of time, not just a short period of time, depending upon circumstances. What's the world around you like? And what's the inner world requires spiritual strength. There's a very nice teaching I like. I'm going to share that with you now. One cannot attain the supreme platform of self-realization without being sufficiently favored by Balaram. Bala does not mean physical strength. One must have the spiritual strength, which is infused by Balaram or Sankarshan. That yoga helps develop spiritual strength. And there's a source of that spiritual strength. Self-realization requires that source of spiritual strength. So in the yoga process, in chapter 6 of Bhagavad-Gita, it's a process of meditation. I'm sure you're familiar. Dhyan yoga, or the process of meditation. And meditation process is meant to carry one to fixing one's mind on the Supreme. And when one fixes one's mind on the Supreme, then simultaneously you can understand yourself in the higher sense of self. That's self-realization. That's the yoga process in a nutshell. Bringing the mind to that which is the source of everything and thereby realizing who you are. That requires spiritual strength. In your academic work, you also require strength, mental strength at least, to carry through day by day and year by year, whatever your standard of education is that you're hoping to achieve. Anything in life requires strength. And this resiliency in the face of reversals requires spiritual strength. And Balaram is the source of that spiritual strength. Here's another nice verse, you may be familiar, from Bhagavad-Gita chapter 18. This is speaking of what self-realization is from that previous slide. Self-realization means knowing who you are. And knowing who you are is this first line, Brahmabhuta. Brahmabhuta is understanding who you are. You're of the realm of Brahman or spirit. You may be encased in, not maybe, you are encased in a body, gross and subtle, but you're the spark of life within. And realizing that, that's the Brahmabhuta stage from Bhagavad-Gita. And the symptom is prasanatma. It's a joy from within, not depending upon circumstances outside, the configuration of duality at any given moment. Now I'm happy, now I'm sad, now I'm feeling good fortune, ill fortune. It's not external circumstances. It's the internal self-realization, power or potency or happiness. And then the rest, some na sochati na kangsati, neither hankering or lamenting for something that's outside of yourself. Seeing other living entities with equal mind, sama, sarveshu bhuteshu, seeing other living entities with a friendly mood, a spiritual perception of who they are. And from that position, bhakti is yours. You are in the house or in the realm of bhakti. So here's a nice painting image of Balaram. So we want spiritual strength, and he's the source of that spiritual strength. And we get some of that spiritual strength directly from the Mahamantra. There you see Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That Rama can mean Balaram. So when we're doing mantra chanting, we're connecting with him anyway. So good to be conscious of who it is that you're connecting with, and the spirit, gaining from Balaram the spiritual strength to come to the stage of self-realization and becoming truly resilient in the face of difficult circumstances or reversals in life. Just a few more thoughts, and I'll conclude. Yoga means linking, and it's nice to have strength beyond your own strength, and that's what yoga does. It connects you with a strength that's beyond your own strength. Just like a small child, they may feel secure just by being in the presence of their father or their protector. And that's because there's strength beyond their own strength. I like the story Prabhupada told about that. A little boy is walking along the street holding the hand of his father, and here comes a big dog. Woof, 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 growling, showing his teeth. And the small boy holding the hand of his father remains undisturbed because he knows his father will protect him. So he remains unruffled or undisturbed, even in the face of some reversal or some difficult circumstance of life. When we're conscious of that place of shelter for us, the Mahamantra provides access to that place of shelter. The whole of the yoga process provides that place of shelter. And those who feel that shelter, you find resiliency in the face of reversals. And I added this one slide. This is a hawk. Now, I don't know if in India, there's some persons here who are from India, if you have this expression, watching like a hawk. That's something you're familiar with? Karuna, is that not familiar with that? Okay. Watching like a hawk. So I like the image, besides it's like really intense, but it's a kind of focus on that place of shelter because we want protection, we want to feel safe, we want, and this topic for today, we want that inner strength, that there is resiliency. We're not going to snap or break or scream or run away or panic or something. Stay focused like a hawk. The hawk watches the object, and when the hawk is ready, it zooms in and captures its object. So it's a common expression in the West. Keep your attention focused during practice of yoga, and if you do like that, it will carry over to the other activities of your everyday life. That inner focus and concentration on that shelter that's there, accessible for all of us. That's what this image means to me anyways. Stay focused like that, and you'll find that strength. Lastly, there's another Sanskrit word. I hope you don't mind Sanskrit words. Dhira. Dhira means remaining undisturbed, even when there's cause for disturbance. In discussing chapter 6 of Bhagavad-Gita, Prabhupada, that word dhira is found in chapter 6, and he explains the meaning. When there is no cause for disturbance and you remain undisturbed, that's not so wonderful. But when there's cause for disturbance and you remain undisturbed, that's something wonderful. And that is what dhira is. Dhira is even beyond resiliency. Resiliency indicates flexibility and stretch and going back to normal. Dhira is just fixed or sober-minded. Sometimes it's translated like that. Your mind isn't moved this way, that way by circumstance. There's a purpose, a mission, and you can accommodate, adjust the flow of your energies in the course of your day or week or month or year or section of your life. You can accommodate circumstances that arise, and you remain fixed. And one who can remain fixed is sure to reach the goal. Not just by your own effort, but by the reciprocation that comes from that place of shelter for us, Krishna. And we can access him most easily, most readily through the Mahamantra, chanting, and through our very simple, very direct teachings found in Bhagavad-Gita. So there's my sharing on this topic. And I see a lot of people attending this discussion online. And so, hear a little background noise. Does somebody need to mute their microphone? We're okay. Okay, so, Karuna, take it away. What would you like everybody to do here?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you for, as always, the very simple and elegantly presented message on accessing spiritual strength in the face of reversals. So we encourage the participants to raise their hands on video, if you're able to turn on your video, or using the chat feature in Zoom. There's a raise hand feature. You can use that if you'd like. If you do not wish to ask the question personally, you can type it up in the chat in Zoom and I'll read it out. But of course, we and Maharaj, I'm sure, would prefer that you ask the question in person.
As you like.
Okay. So are there any questions or comments?
I had a quick comment. My camera isn't working right now, sorry. But when you mentioned the story of the Chinese farmer,
yeah,
I really appreciate it. That was a really nice story. And I was thinking about it, and also it seems like, you know, by the way the story was going, every time the townspeople thought that something was like a negative or not a good thing, they didn't have enough information at that time to know whether it was good or bad. So I feel like another way we can think about it is that, you know, you at any moment, you don't really actually have enough information to know whether something is good or bad. So there's really no reason to worry because you just never have enough information to worry, if that makes sense.
Exactly. If you remember from last week, thank you for that comment. From last week, there was a slide that's, you know, it was a slide saying basically, why worry? And, you know, if there's something that's out of your control, why worry? And if there's something you can do about it, then do something. But what good is worrying going to do? And then another similar to what you're saying, not enough information, but let's say the big picture. Picture in your mind, if you would, an embroidery or a tapestry that's under a microscope. And under the microscope, you see different colored threads going in different directions, and the pattern of it doesn't make any sense. It's chaos. And you go away from the microscope and back out and see the big picture, and that embroidery or tapestry is very beautiful. So similarly, your message was we may not have enough information. Another way of saying the same thing is we don't have the big picture. When we're passing through circumstances that look whatever they look like, they maybe look like misfortune or good fortune, we don't have the big picture. How do you get the big picture? How do you be able to process short-term events in a way that, well, you have to have a little patience, and with patience, you look at the big picture, and many times, not always, something that looked like, oh no, turned out to be, wow, that was really good. The trying circumstance created an opportunity for you to apply yourself in a different way than you were doing before. So, the big picture. You're saying not having sufficient information, and I like the big picture idea.
Yeah, big picture idea. Thank you. That's great.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Simran. Does anybody else have a question or a comment?
Kishori's raising her hand.
Kishori, go ahead.
Yeah, if no one else has a question, I just wanted to ask Maharaj. Maharaj, when we're confronted with difficult situations, sometimes one can react externally like they're not disturbed, but internally there's turmoil. But it sounded, or what I perceived from your definition of adhira is that there's no turmoil, whether external or internal.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could comment on that a
Sure.
little bit.
Dhira is mature, and the person who is externally seeming calm and internally in turmoil, it could be pretense, they could be pretending themselves. They could be, cosmetically wanting other people to perceive them in a certain way. So it can be a lot of different things that's going on when there's external calmness and internal turmoil. But it can be you're just being tolerant and patient for the longer term getting on the other side of the turmoil situation. Let's say, there's a big storm, like all these hurricane things that are coming in from the Gulf. They know it's coming, and when it comes, it's turmoil. And after a while, it subsides, and then they do their cleanup, and they get on with life. So many of the things in life that are externally turmoil creating, there may be some internal turmoil, but it's temporary. This is where knowledge helps you get on the other side of the circumstance. And the turmoil, internal, will also subside because it's temporary. So to get to the dhira stage, there's little steps. And one of the first steps that comes in Bhagavad-Gita is you tolerate. That's a drishti message. The circumstance is what it is. You accept it is what it is, and you then make decisions what you're going to do because it is what it is. You look at your options and you consider your options, and it's uncomfortable depending upon the circumstance. It can be more than uncomfortable. And you stay on course with trying to make wise decisions. That steadies the mind towards in our case, or the case of a life of bhakti, making choices that are going to be pleasing to Krishna. I mean, so much depends upon the circumstance. So supposing somebody says something really mean and hurtful, and you can just remain calm on the outside, and inside maybe your blood is boiling, thinking, rah, 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 rah. That person, something, something. And that may be a beginning, just to tolerate externally, and then look beyond the reaction of the mind to, let's say, a value that you hold inside. And I don't want to be just in a combat zone with somebody that's cruel and harsh and mean. I'd rather take the high road. But I'm not there yet. So your values and your behaviors need to align themselves, and further with the deeper, more profound purposes of life that you hold that are unchanging. So, I mean, I'm giving some thoughts on the on the outside calm and the inside turmoil. And the goal is to get to the stage of Dhira where there's no turmoil at all. There's steps. There's steps. The yoga system teaches us, take shelter of transcendence and you'll get there.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Gary. So Maharaj, we're finding out that we have a few new people at the program for whom this is their very first Bhakti Yoga program. We have one student, Shubham, who's joined the Bhakti Yoga program for the very first time. He's on camera. And there may be others. And if there are, I encourage that you please message me or Kishori Radha. And that way we can keep you apprised of all our special events and programs. Maharaj, would you like to give a message to the people who are coming here for the very first time?
Welcome. The little message is the journey is fun. It's filled with adventure. There is a lot of learning. It is challenging at times because there's paradigms that don't match the worldly paradigm. But that's, for persons that like adventure, that's yummy. That's really attractive. And then, so it's good when you bump into, here's something that I've heard or read that is different than the paradigm that I've been accustomed to. Don't feel uncomfortable. Feel like, oh, I want to understand this better. And you read further or you inquire further. So association with those that have been through what you're going through. Ask them, hey, what's that territory out there that looks adventuresome but, foreign to me? How do I understand it? Good association will help you, go down that journey that's filled with adventure and surprises. Persons that aren't adventurous aren't going to really like, yoga. If it's the same old, then, that's not a yogi candidate. But good association will help you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful talk today. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maharaj. We also have George Mason students with us, I understand. Does anybody from George Mason have a question?
There's somebody seated right in front of me, just on the other side of that camera. That's a George Mason student. He's raising his hand.
Please.
Should we take his question?
Yes, Maharaj, please go ahead.
Okay, we got a microphone here too. Look at this. We're technology folks.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So you briefly described about austerities in student life for a higher purpose, like rising early, cleanliness and truthfulness. So my question is, so sometimes it happens that we become complacent and we want to sit back and relax, or we become too much self-satisfied. So is that because of the goodness, or is that does that happen because of ignorance, that we don't want to take austerities for a higher purpose in life? So how do we differentiate between those two modes?
Very nice question. Complacency is natural and an obstacle. Complacency can mean different things for different people, but commonly it means, I want to feel comfortable. And I'm taking up a process to feel comfortable. Hey, I'm feeling comfortable. So that's the complacency zone. Now, something that it's a type of ignorance because it's not really who you are, and it's not what real happiness is being complacent. Real happiness is to know who you are, and complacency is not who you are. Complacency commonly will mean continuation of the bodily identification and the turmoil, like Kishori Radha's question was asking. When the turmoil subsides, I'll give a little example, if you don't mind. For years, I was based in New York City, and it was very common, right where the temple was, there was a subway underneath the street. And when the A train would go rumbling through, all the cars that had car alarms, the car alarms would get triggered. And we would hear until the person that had their car parked on the street would come out of their office and switch off the car alarm. And then it was like, that noise is over now. But that's not what real happiness is. The noise is over now. That's complacency. What's real happiness is beyond the noise is over now. And let me just settle into being complacent. There's a place of higher consciousness that yoga system can take one to. It's designed to take one to that, knowing who you are, happiness, a deeper inner contentment, joy, not complacency. So it's a type of ignorance. That's my response to your question. It is of that. There's a combination of goodness, ignorance. There's the noise has stopped, and then let me kick back. So it's a combination of those, both of those modes, but it's not what transcendence is. It's not what real joy and real happiness is, the higher consciousness place. Keep going. Don't become complacent. Because when you become complacent, you slide back down again.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for that question. So it's quite a nice discussion going, and the good news is we don't have to end anytime soon. If you all have more questions, it's not even 7 o'clock yet. Does anybody else have a question?
I see a lot of people online. Somebody must have some thoughts to share with us.
Yes, if you have a comment, also encourage you to
I see
unmute.
something down there in the chat box. Why don't you read some of those?
Harsh Dhan Prabhu is saying that he was introduced to the club at George Mason University and he really wanted to attend this session. So very nice. Welcome, Harsh. Yes, no other questions yet, Maharaj, but I'm hopeful that we can churn some out of this group.
We have some people in the room, and I want to be respectful of the people attending by Zoom. But if there's nothing from the people on the screen here, we'll see if there's some questions in the room. Sure enough, there's a question in the room.
Please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So this is my short question. So what is the best way to find out the answer for the question is like who you are in higher consequence
Okay.
in spiritual way?
There's short, medium, and long answers. You want a short one?
In
Chapter 2, Bhagavad-Gita. The short one is, we are not of this world. Chapter 2, the first half of Chapter 2 Bhagavad-Gita is Sankhya. Shubham. Sankhya. You've heard that word before?
Is it digits?
Sankhya.
Sankhya?
Sankhya.
No.
Sankhya. Sankhya. Sankhya is a yoga system. Sankhya yoga. Sankhya literally means, the literal translation of the word Sankhya is to count. So there's categories of matter, there's categories of spirit, and we belong to the category of spirit. That's the beginning step. And it's an important step because we all have bodies and we all have minds and intelligence. We have gross and subtle bodies, and that's not who we are. So the first step of knowing who you are is to know who you aren't. And then it's not just a leap of faith, it's kind of common sense or intuitive that we're that spark of life within. If you read, I'll give you one example from chapter 2. It's really simple. The one example from chapter 2 Bhagavad-Gita is very early when Krishna is explaining Sankhya. He says, as the soul, that's us, passes from babyhood to childhood to youth to old age, we're giving up the previous body, accepting the next one, accepting the next one, accepting the next one. The same thing happens at the time of death. We give up that body and accept another one. So let's say the same thing again. Some time ago, my sister sent me some baby pictures. And then, after baby pictures, here where we were when we were growing up together, little kids, like family pictures. So there's the baby body, there's the little boy body, there's the youthful body, there's the college graduate body, and then, here's the old body. I'm the same person, but this body was given up and that body was taken and so forth. So who are we? Self-realization. We're not the body, we're the spark of life within. Oh, I'm the spark of life within. It's not such a big surprise, but the next lesson from Bhagavad Gita is, how do you live your life that way? Oh, it's one thing to have the concept, another thing to live that way. So the next thing that Bhagavad Gita teaches is how you do your activities, your work, your whatever, your duties of life, without attachment to that which you aren't, but in the consciousness of who you are. It's called karma yoga. So there's unfolding of that who you are through practical activities of life, the consciousness behind those practical activities of life, leading to meditation, leading to a life of inner contemplation and devotion, with a full, robust life of doing everything with the consciousness of who you are. There's an unfolding of that, like a seed sprouting and then going further and further. There's stages of unfolding of that consciousness of self-realization. It takes thoughtfulness. It takes, his question about complacency. You can be comfortable and then not go further. Or you don't have to be uncomfortable to go further. You can be comfortable and go further. I feel enlivened and I want to go further. I want to go further. I want to go further. So it's unfolding of awareness in stages. That's very predictable stages of consciousness. And then the mature stage, you ready for that? Mature stage is described beyond liberation or beyond nirvana is in your spiritual identity, engaging in spiritual activities. Even when you're in your body, in your spiritual identity, engaging in your spiritual activities. That's self-realization. And one who has that consciousness, when they're moving about in the world, interacting with people that are doing everyday things, and that person is doing everyday things, it's like electricity. They're charged, and they electrify or spiritually charge those who they come in contact with spiritual potency. That's what a sadhu is. Sadhu isn't just somebody that's wearing saffron. Sadhu is one who's in that consciousness. And then they can elevate consciousness of others because of their elevated consciousness. Engaging in spiritual activity with their spiritual identity, fully conscious of their spiritual identity, moving about the world. Gradual. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj, for elevating our consciousness with every answer. We have one question from
Good.
Facebook.
Okay, go for it.
And I'm not sure if there are other people managing the different platforms. I'm not aware, but I just found out about this one question, so I'll read it.
Okay.
But if there are other people who are aware of other platforms and people who have questions there, please feel free to post them on the Zoom chat, and I'll read them out. So Maharaj, this question is by Mother Archana Vaidya. Hare Krishna Maharaj, mostly it is fear for dear ones if they have to go through pain and we can't help in any way. If they're not able to take the right shelter, they will suffer a lot more than being grounded in a shelter. Can you kindly share your thought with regard to this in light of today's topic?
Let me, Karuni, help me understand if I've understood the question correctly. Somebody's in a difficult situation. You want to extend yourself to that person who's in a difficult situation. They may not have the same sense of shelter that you have, shelter in Krishna, the source of everything, what to do in that circumstance. Is that the question?
That's my understanding, Maharaj.
Okay. My standard answer to something like this is, it depends. There's no cookie cutter answer to that situation. It's so much your relationship with that person, your understanding of their openness, your understanding of their degree of distress of the circumstance that they're passing through, that they don't feel Krishna's shelter. So there's so many variables. It's hard to say. It depends on the variables. It may be, depending upon the relationship, it may be it's just the right thing to do, to just don't find a solution or even try to point to shelter of Krishna, but just, as the saying goes, be there for that person. So that, in other words, you're establishing a relationship if there isn't one that already exists, you're establishing a relationship of you care, you hear the person out, they feel that they've been heard, they feel that they've been understood, and you extend your well wishes and concern for them. Depends on the relationship that you have with that person, and and then from their side, their capacity. Where are they in their spiritual trajectory, and what might be a next step for them towards shelter? So there's too many variables to give an answer other than speaking in general terms like that. consider the person where they're at and what can be helpful for them to feel heard, understood, and be able and feel support to take a little gentle step in a good direction. Depends on the person and the relationship.
Thank you, Maharaj. If I may piggyback a little question, a follow-up to that. Sometimes we are not sure whether to say more or say less about Krishna. And is that also very contextual? Should we err on the side of saying more or less if you're not sure?
I would say invest in the relationship before you make that choice. That may mean say less, but it may mean if you depending if you're investing in the relationship and you get some signal somehow or another back from the person that they're actually open to hearing more, then you can say more. But the first step is invest in the relationship, and I guess that means say less until you get a signal that says say more.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maharaj. I believe that Shubham has a question. Please go ahead, Shubham.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So, is there a advantage in indulging in everyday and day-to-day life stuff, worldly activities, or rather than full-time devotion to spiritual elevation, working towards the spiritual elevation, or is it because uh, leaving worldly activities is so hard that one has to take gradual steps uh, towards spiritual activities?
The latter part, but a little modification, if you don't mind. The teaching of Bhagavad-Gita is not an either or. It's not secular. There's this department over here that says that's my worldly, and there's this department over here that's my spiritual, and I've got these two things going on, and I'm supposed to learn how to balance them. So rather, little by little, step by step, you spiritualize all your activity. That means then that the material ones then become spiritualized activity. Let's say you're a student. So it's not, you do time management, but if you invest some time in spiritual core activities, you will find that your curricular and extracurricular activities also take on a spiritualized dimension to them. It's a gradual step by step. It's not an either or. It's not secular. The picture of Bhagavad Gita is Arjun's a warrior, and he wants, like, I'm out of here. I see what's over there, and it looks awful, and here's my theistic reasons why it's awful. I'm out of here. I want to be a spiritual guy. And Krishna says, no. You perform your duty. In his case, it was the battlefield. In your case, it's not a battlefield, it's something else. In each of our cases, it's something else. So we have our duties, and you perform your duties. And at the same time, you cultivate a connection with transcendence or connection with Krishna. And you do both at the same time in a time-managed way. So some time each day for this, and some time each day for that, and some time for sleeping, and some time for eating, and some time for studying, and some time for building my spiritual core that then spiritualizes everything. Incrementally, as that last option that you gave.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. We have an anonymous question in the chat, which I'll read out. And It is from somebody who has attended Bhakti Yoga programs a few times at least before. Hare Krishna, I have a personal question. I recently graduated in June. My parents have some financial conditions in India, I guess difficulties, and I thought if I had a job till now, I would help them. But due to COVID and other things, it is difficult, and I sometimes feel if I had been better, maybe I would have solved this issue for my parents earlier. How do I see this? What vision do I have of this?
The question is a question of I'm a failure, or I've not sufficiently succeeded in taking care of the needs of my parents, and how do I deal with that feeling? Is that the question?
Yes, Mara, it sounds like that. If I had been better, maybe I would have solved this issue before. So that's the feeling this person is getting.
Well, several things. We can always do better. When is the bell ring when we said, I did it. I did the best possible that one can do. The bell, you're not going to find that bell unless you're an illusion. So there's always more that we can do. So you don't lament, because you'll always, that will be your life. You'll be a life of lamentation. You do what you can do to your capacity, and you pray to Krishna for increased capacity. And a little bit like what Kishori Radha had to say, sometimes we may not see, I think it was her that said this, we may not see, a particular circumstance and how it fits in with the big picture, or how it fits in with, maybe it wasn't her that asked that question, maybe it was somebody else.
It was Simran, our club president at UMD.
Okay. So there may be a bigger picture that this person is not seeing, and it's not, you're feeling badly that you didn't do enough isn't going to help the situation. Try to see what the big picture is, try to see what your options are, and move forward with what your options are. And please don't forget that spiritual strength will help you in all circumstances, or say it negatively. If you forget the spiritual strength that's necessary, you won't be successful no matter how many times you try and how hard you try. Nor will you feel satisfied. Nor will be able to satisfy mom and dad, because, satisfaction doesn't come from just getting results. Satisfaction comes from something else. It comes from higher consciousness. And work towards higher consciousness and apply yourself in whatever take guidance from people that may be able to guide you in how to find that special job that you're looking for, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, everything is up to Krishna anyways. You make your best effort to be of service to him. That's our devotional life. Use your intelligence, use your ability, use whatever resources that have been gifted to you, and you use them to your best ability in serving Krishna, and the results are up to Krishna. That's my advice. Don't go into this lamentation mode. It won't help anybody, yourself, your parents, or your capacity to get a good job or anything. It will be unproductive. Don't go there.
Thank you, Maharaj. And the person thanks you very much for the answer.
Okay.
So, Maharaj, we have one question from UMD alumnus, Tarun Dolaria Prabhu. He says, thank you for your class. After hearing your answer about complacent behavior, I think I have that tendency. I feel satisfied with job and even spiritual progress, and not wanting to take next steps. How do I come out of this mode?
Well, I like visual things, as you can see from the presentation that I made. So here's a visual thing. Supposing you're by the river Ganges, and you're a good swimmer, and you go out into the river Ganges and it's flowing swiftly, and you're just treading water. what's going to happen? You're going to go downstream. So if you get into a complacent mode, what's going to happen? You'll go downstream. You'll find that out. Just life will teach you that lesson. Complacency leads to a downward direction of consciousness, and circumstances that looked like sufficient to be complacent start to shift, and that you get a boot in the seat of the pants, and your complacency is over. So don't wait for that spiral downwards or the moving downstream in the river. Look to what your goal is. What's the goal of life? Is the goal of life you have a job, you have some money, you did this and that, and that's it? Is that life's mission? I mean, you wouldn't be attending this discussion if you thought that was life's mission. You'd be doing something else. So you do have that idea that there is some higher purpose. I suggest you invest thoughtfulness into what is for you, not so you get an A in your Bhagavad-Gita exam, but for you, what's important to you? The fundamental question. The who am I question, like was asked a little bit earlier. If you don't ask the question, you're not going to get an answer. If you ask the question, you're more likely to get an answer. So ask yourself the question, what's really important to me? What's the mission of life? What's the mission of life? And don't wait until you're an old fellow to ask the question. Lead your life now with an understanding that there is a purpose. God has given this human form of life. What is that purpose? One answer is self-realization. Okay, what's that? And how do I go about it? That was her question. So whatever that higher purpose is, that will prevent you from becoming complacent. Soon enough, the circumstances that are allowing you to feel complacent will move and shift, and it'll become uncomfortable again. But don't wait for that to get animated and activated to get uncomplacent again. Look for your higher purpose in all circumstances. That was the Viktor Frankl message, expressed in different terminology, but it's the same message. The higher mode is goodness. The lower mode is this other one. I'm okay, you're okay, and then it changes. There's a higher purpose. What is it? Ask, read Bhagavad-Gita with that inquisitive spirit, and you'll find all kinds of things. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, how are you on time personally?
How am I on time? We started at 6 and it's 20 minutes after 7. How is our audience doing? Let's say 10 minutes. How's that?
That sounds wonderful, Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you for being generous. We can circle back to the devotees in the room if anybody has a question there. I also see many UMD alumni with us. Right off the bat, I see Vaishali, I see Harsh Prabhu, I see, I don't see anybody else. But yeah, does anybody in the room or any of the alumni or anyone else have a further question or comment?
We have some students in the room that are waving their arms.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, those who have questions.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful class. I have a question that sometimes I am faced with reversals or difference in opinion within friends or family at work. In those situations, what I have learned and understood from our bhakti process is that we can prepare ourselves at two different levels. First, taking shelter, strengthening our own spiritual practice. But my question is that what are the few things that we can do at the moment when we are meeting the reversals, and what are the few things that we can do to remain calm and dhira?
Could you hear the question over there? Okay.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, good. I'll give a short answer and invite you to explore a more detailed answer. The short answer is, this is my advice. Other things you can do besides the ones you mentioned. Here comes a circumstance that was unexpected. And let's say it's unpleasant, and there's some emotions that are coming to my mind because it's unpleasant. First, pause, or go into a reflective space. That's mode of goodness. In this reflective space, you consider, using counselor language, it is what it is. It means acceptance. The reaction, as opposed to responding, reaction says, I don't like it, or something like that. And I'm feeling that, so I'm feeling bad. I have this bad emotion about the thing that I don't like, and get lost in the reacting mode. So this is, as opposed to that, you go into the mode of goodness mode, and you reflect, accepting the it is what it is. And then you consider, what are my options? There's some lesson that I can learn from this experience. The obstacle can become an opportunity to learn something or to fulfill some other purpose that I'm not seeing at this moment. So what are my options? This is the common expression is, life throws rocks at you and you can react and get angry and stuff. Or the life throws rocks at you, you pick up the rock and toss it in the air a few times, and you think, life threw rocks at me. Now, what are some of my options? You're in this reflective space. And, in practical terms, what can I do about the rock that just got thrown at me and the feelings about the rock that just got thrown at me? What are some of my options? And then you may decide, there really isn't anything I can do because the life threw rocks at me. So then you can consider, what are some of the things that give me energy and strength and vitality? Let me do some of that. So you go to a place of strength. And when you're in the place of strength, then you can be a little more detached about the rock and the feelings about the rock, and then get some fresh ideas about what your options are. You put a little space between the hurt and the instrument that brought the hurt, so you can be more in a detached, with higher intelligence operating, how to, address yourself. So there's lots of options, but when you're in the reactive mode, you don't think of options, you just react. You get taken over by passion and ignorance, anger, or guilt, or something, a lower mode emotion. You're lost. The mode of goodness, first place, reflective. And I would like Krishna willing, for Krishna to indicate what is it that he would like me to understand about life or about myself or about something. So you keep that on your radar screen. The Krishna signal indicating this is what I want you to learn from this. And if it doesn't come, it's okay, but you're open to hear, to understand from Krishna that some higher lesson of life. And you go to a position of strength. That's what Viktor Frankl did. He wanted to be in service to other people, to help people who are going through stress, that there's nothing they can do about circumstantially. He wanted to help. That's where he went. That gave him strength. It gave him protection. He survived, and he became a celebrity afterwards, not just from the book that he wrote, but helping people out of, deal with circumstances that there's nothing they can do about it. But he didn't do problem solving. He gave consciousness addressing solution. Okay. There's one more in the room question. Should we take it, Karuna?
As you desire, Maharaj.
Okay, one more question, and I think we're going to end. It's 7:30.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is how to take appreciations I get from others for the services as encouragement to improve my service without letting pride or getting the tendency to expect more appreciation.
Well, if you have the mood of service, if there's some mistake, you take responsibility for it. If there's some honor, it goes transparently through you to that source that gave you the ability to do what you're doing. And even the understanding that devotional service is important to do. To those who are above you in spiritual maturity, who you've received from, any credit goes to them. If there's something good, the credit goes to them. If there's something mistaken, please correct me. I take responsibility for those things. So it's the mood of service, very simply. And if there is a tendency to get inflated with praise or expect it when it doesn't come, that's not the mood of service. The medicine is the mood of service. Humble mode of service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you once again so much for taking valuable time to address us. And we hope that, we all benefited so much. You were very generous with your time, with the questions. And we hope that as you do, you're able to return and share your wisdom with us in the near future.
You're a good moderator. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. I would just like to acknowledge some of the people who made this program possible. Thank you to Mahamantra Prabhu and his team of devotees and your technical team for making a very seamless technical presentation possible. And we have our guides for the club, Devaprastha Prabhu and Padma Malini Mataji. Also, I don't know if they are able to turn on their cameras. We have the club president, Simran. We have Rashmi, who is an alumni, who's an active member of the planning committee. We have Shikha, who is also an officer helping with promotions and advertising. And
quite a team.
We have Sonam, who is an alumni, who's joining us also. So we have many people who made this possible with their efforts.
Who besides Shubham are here for the first time?
Shubham is here for the first time.
Anyone
yes.
else? You mentioned some other names. Are they on the screen here?
Maharaj, I was not able to determine for sure if there was somebody else.
Devaprastha, do you know?
The other names mentioned are on the screen. I don't think anyone else is the first time here.
Okay, okay. Well, I hope to see you again, Shubham, and anyone else that's here for the first time.
Sure, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you so much. This is really wonderful. Thank you. All right, so we'll see you all next week. Be well, be safe.
Thank you, Karuna, for moderating so nicely. You did a very nice job.
Thank you.
And thank you, Maharaj.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.